Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. We are in beautiful Herceg-Novi in Montenegro. As you can see, there's a nice view, or this is probably one of the nicest views. It's quite great. We are trying to hide in the shade so we don't get too much sun right now because it's quite hot out in spite of being, almost the middle of September. So today we're going to dive into the possibility of residency programs in Montenegro. Before we get started, if you want to learn anything about this, you should click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, check out our other videos, and let's get started into this subject. So, Montenegro as a place for residency. Actually, this is a pretty good option in a couple different regards. So, the first regard that it's really good is it's quite easy. Okay, so you can fairly easily form a company in Montenegro and get residence here pretty quickly, pretty easily, pretty inexpensively. So that's nice, right? Quite decent. At the same time, it's quite nice because it's pretty attractive in certain respects. Specifically, the tax system here, very, I would think, fair, right? They have a 9% flat tax, both at the corporate level and at the personal level. They don't have controlled foreign companies rules. It's quite easy to do tax planning and end up with a pretty low rate of tax. So in that sense, you can be paying something. Some people like that these days. They like to be able to show that, hey, they paid taxes fairly on their money, but without having to go and to, give up 40 or 50% of what you make, like you might in Scandinavia or the US or Canada or Australia or, Germany, etc., right? So that's pretty good. That's, it's a decent reason to come. In addition to that, summers here are quite nice, right? You can see, it's beautiful. You've got all kinds of water sports. You can go out to Budva. Normally, it's a pretty lively part of the world in the summer. This year, the summer was pretty dead because of Corona, but overall, quite nice. It's also pretty affordable. So not as cheap as Serbia, not as cheap as Bulgaria, but, fairly inexpensive. To give you an idea, I just came up to this coffee shop here. I paid €1.30 for a taxi. I've spent, I think, €7 to go across the town. It's not like amazingly cheap if you want to, taking a trip to the airport, depending on which airport you go to Podgorica, it's like €90. If you want to get somebody to take you, to go up to the airport in Dubrovnik is maybe like 40, 50 euros. So you've got that. Rent is fairly inexpensive. Property is fairly reasonably priced. And things work so-so, I would say. People are quite nice, so that's pretty good. I find that in the coastal regions, for sure, people speak pretty decent English. So that's great. It's kind of a service culture because they cater to tourists in this part of the world. So that's pretty cool, right? Quite easy, I think, to get to know Montenegrins. I think that people here are in some parts of countries in Eastern Europe, etc. You can get a little bit of a scammy culture, and I find there's a lot less of that here. So that's also pretty cool, right? Quite nice. Lots to love, lots to like about Montenegrins. That being said, it is a small place, and so the number of opportunities is quite limited. Your infrastructure is kind of mediocre, right? So you're not typically going to get, certainly the roads here, although they haven't been improving them, are not fantastic. I talked quite a bit about how the airports here are super small and not well connected, so that's something that's a bit of a trade-off. Your water infrastructure, there's a little bit of a debate. They say that it's safe to drink the water here, but then again, my wife who's from here, so they never drink the water here. So, I guess, give it however, whichever way you want. So I think from that standpoint, it's so-so. You'll definitely notice, when I first came here, I'd been in Croatia first, then I came down to Montenegro. I definitely noticed it was a little more run down, not quite as well kept up as in Croatia, probably a reflection of the EU money that they have in Croatia, but still, certainly a nice place, definitely a place you should come as a tourist. If right here, if we were to go down, there's the Bay of Kotor, which is just spectacular. I think it's one of the most beautiful areas of the coastline on the Adriatic Sea and perhaps the Mediterranean Sea as well. So really, definitely worth coming and checking out, regardless of whether you're going to live. But the fact that you can form a company easily, it's not too expensive, You can set up a bank account personally and for the business quite easily. You can't, as a foreigner, opening a bank account for like a foreign company is basically not going to happen anymore. They used to have that as an option, but not so good. The banking services, so this comes back to the infrastructure thing. So they basically don't have PayPal here, not to receive money anyway, not good. Payment processing, virtually non-existent here, very difficult, so not so good. The banking system, not so good. I'll do another video on banks in Montenegro, but the bottom line is that, it's okay for keeping a small amount of money, for doing your transactional banking day to day, etc. But if you want to have large amounts of money, if you were to live here, you should probably set up bank accounts somewhere else for wealth management or for corporate, etc. So typically, if I was to be living here, I would set up foreign companies, which I would run my business through, and then I would just pay out to myself locally. So anyway, that's kind of something to consider. But the good news is you don't have to do anything sophisticated in order to get into these situations. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good option if you're willing to spend the time here. So this is kind of the last part, and this is the downside. So I told you kind of the few things that are good. Now let's talk about the downside. The downside is they do, at least on paper, have fairly stringent minimum stay requirements, and you're supposed to inform them if you leave the country, which is a little bit bizarre and annoying. I don't know whether in practice they're really going to check on that. It's not really that type of country, but that being said, on paper, that's the way it is. And the way that I always look at these things is I say, hey, listen, there is on paper and there's reality. And yeah, maybe I can get away with what there is based on reality rather than on what's on paper. But if things ever go against me, the paper is clearly on the other side. So I try to avoid that where possible. So anyway, if you're looking for some place that's a little bit more calm, a little bit more peaceful, you want to maybe buy some real estate that's fairly inexpensive, it's possibly a good investment. I've done a video on that previously. Maybe I'll talk about it again. This is, an easy place to come. It's a place that affords a pretty, I would say, like easygoing lifestyle. If you were to compare this to Greece, lots of reasons to come here as opposed to Greece, although there's some new programs in Greece that make it a little bit more attractive as well. And so yeah, worth considering for sure. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. If you have questions, put them in the comments below. If you would like to book a call with me about tax planning, residencies, citizenships, anything like this, you can click the link below, which is clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. You can also visit our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, and we will look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Check out our others and talk soon.